Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at the Logitech Solar Keyboard Folio case for the iPad 2 and the iPad 3. Now this retails for $129.99 and it's fairly pricey, but let's take a look around to see what we get for that money. So this is a Folio style case, so it completely protects the iPad but adds a Bluetooth keyboard integrated into the case and charges via solar cells. So no wires, no batteries to change here. It's entirely self-sufficient. Connects via Bluetooth obviously, since all keyboards connecting to the iPad have to connect via Bluetooth or physical connection. So what we have here is interactive packaging, which is kind of interesting. So you can open this up and take a look around the case itself. There's actually magnets in the packaging itself, not in the case but in the packaging, which keep it closed. So here you can take a look at the keyboard, and you have a little window here to test out the keys. So if you're in the Best Buy or any electronics store, you can take a look around to see if you like the keys. So this is a chiclet style keys, very similar to Apple's Bluetooth keyboard. It has that same sort of travel, same sort of feel to it. We also have one of its key features demonstrated here, which is its positions. Now, unlike most keyboards that just, I don't know, sort of allow you to slot this into different positions, this actually has some functionality to it. So when you move it into the keyboard position or the typing position here, it actually activates the Bluetooth keyboard. So there's no on and off switch here. You just move it into the keyboard position and it turns on the Bluetooth keyboard and pairs with the iPad. As soon as you move it out of that position, or if you close it, it turns off the keyboard and you're good to go. A lot of keyboards, they stay permanently connected to it and you have to physically turn it off, or you have to go to the iPad to eject the keyboard. You also have a media position here, which turns the front row of keys into media controls for your movies or music, and we'll demonstrate that. So let's go ahead and take it out of its packaging to see what we get. Now, I've already cut the tabs here, so all you have to do is lift it up, and we can slide it out. But first, let's take a look at the literature here. We have the Logitech guide, which tells us a little about the product, about what the buttons do, how to install the iPad, how to pair the Bluetooth keyboard to the iPad. So let's go ahead and take a look around. We also have our important information guide, which we don't care about. Peel that back, slide it out. So now we can take a look around the case. So on the inside we have our tray here for installing the iPad, which is actually a soft plastic, so it also provides plenty of protection for the iPad surface. This won't scratch it or trap dirt that might scratch the iPad. We also have our cutouts here, obviously, for the camera, the buttons, our headphone jack, our microphone, our speakers, our dock connector, that sort of thing. Inside we have this polyurethane material, just like on the outside. It's got the same sort of texture to it, so it's also soft material to protect the iPad. Now the keyboard itself also has some instructions on it on how to install the iPad, how to configure it and set it up, and how to use settings under your iOS device to connect it, or your iPad in this case. So we have our full keyboard here, which is not a full-size keyboard in the traditional sense. It's a little crushed together, obviously, to fit the width of the iPad, but it feels pretty full-size. It's actually fairly comfortable. We have a lot of dedicated keys here, which we'll demonstrate once we get the iPad connected. So around the outside, you can see we have our solar cells here, which are covered in plastic. We're going to take that off. So there you go. Again, this will charge with either solar light or artificial light. Now, installing the iPad is easy. All you have to do is drop it into the frame, push it at the corners, and it kind of snaps into place. And you can see it does covers the edge of the iPad very minimally, so it doesn't obscure the bezel at all, and it's pretty snug in there. So you can easily pop it out simply by flexing the frame and it pops out, or snapping it over the edge to snap it back on. Now with our iPad installed, we can take a look around. So on the front we have our polyurethane material here. Again, very soft material, again very similar to the Smart Cover or Smart Case from Apple. We have our Logitech branding here along with our solar cells. Now these are under a sort of a flexible plastic, so these will not shatter with use. I know that was my concern when I saw that. I thought, well, if that's glass, that's going to break. But no, it's pretty durable. On the back we have our hinge here for operating or positioning the iPad into those two positions, typing or media mode. We also have our camera cutout along with cutouts for the sleep-wake switch, volume rocker, and rotation or mute switch. Cutout for the 30-pin dock connector, as well as for the microphone and headphone jack. Now these buttons do look like they're hard to operate, but it's not. You actually can get your finger in there to operate just fine. So the other thing here is we have a cutout for the, or perforations for the speaker to operate. So this actually doesn't muffle the speaker. It actually seems to enhance the quality of the speaker, largely because the audio sort of bounces off this material and back to the user. So I think it actually enhances the audio of the iPad. Now on the inside we have our keyboard along with our battery compartment here, which is sealed, charges only by solar, so you can't replace the batteries or that sort of thing. You can see that it articulates here. You can see the bare iPad on the back along with this soft microfiber material to protect the iPad. Now, as you probably noticed, there are these little nubs here at the corners of the harder case, which wraps the iPad. And that's part of the positioning mechanism. So if we drop it into our typing position, you can see it locks into place. Or if you drop it into our media position, it locks it into place. Now on the right side, we have our Bluetooth key, which turns the Bluetooth on and off. So if we tap that, it goes into pairing mode and turns the keyboard or disconnects the keyboard from the iPad. We also have a little charging indicator here, which lets us know we have a full charge. Right now you can see it's flashing green, letting us know we're fully charged. Now the first thing we need to do in order to use the Bluetooth keyboard is to pair it to the iPad. So the first thing we want to do is go to Settings, go to our Bluetooth control, make sure it's turned on. And now it's going to detect our device here. So it sees the Logitech Solar KB Folio case. I'm going to press the Bluetooth pairing button on the side of the case. We're going to tap that, and now we're connected. So that's all there is to it. So I can start using my case. In fact, I can press the home button to take me right to the home screen. So let's go ahead and go to Notes and start typing something. Now this also means I can easily turn off the keyboard simply by moving it out of position. So for example, you can see that the virtual keyboard will pop up once it's disconnected. So it may take a second or two. Now this allows me to basically rotate this around, use it like a Folio style case. So I can have basically the keyboard on the back of the iPad while I'm gripping it, and you can see I'm typing on it, nothing's happening, and I can continue to use my virtual keyboard. Now if I want to reconnect to the keyboard, all I have to do is position it back into place, drop it into its slot, and we're good to go. Now in the top row of keys we have these functions, which are highlighted in red, which are operated when holding this function button in the lower left corner. So one of them is the home button, which we're pretty familiar with. So if you tap home, it brings you to our home screen. Now the home button also operates as you would expect it. So if you tap, double tap it, brings you to the launcher. Tap it once, brings you back. If you tap it again, brings you back to search or whatever you have that function as. You can also tap and hold. Hello Siri.
Hi, Michael.
So it brings you to Siri. Now we also have our search function here again, so you have to hold the FN or function button and search, so it brings you to search. Number 2 here, let's bring us back to home. Number 2 here is the keyboard language, so you can cycle between the keyboard languages there. We also have our virtual keyboard here, so if we go back to our notes here, if you tap function keyboard, brings up the virtual keyboard, so it doesn't disconnect from the physical keyboard. You have both keyboards now, so if you want that option, that's your choice as well. So you can split that, bring it back together, so there you go. You can hide that again. Now function 4 allows you to select text, so you can select words left to right. And we also have our cut copy item, so let's select some text here. We can cut that, we can paste it, or we can also do command all and command or function 7 to copy that, and let's go to enter, and let's do command V to paste. Oops, command V to paste, not function V. So you get the idea here. So you actually have some redundancies here in terms of those cut copy functions. We also have our media controls here, so we can play. Oops, function play. And you can increase the volume. Oop, function volume. And function mute to mute it. Pause, so you don't have a fast forward or skip button. And you can also lock the iPad. Or you can wake it up. There you go. Now we also have our media position here. So the buttons down here now become media controls. Now one of the buttons here is our photo frame mode, which activates the slideshow function of the iPad. So it takes about a minute here. There you go. Take you out of that. You also have the option to invoke your virtual keyboard. So obviously when you're in this position, you can't use the physical keyboard, but you still have to stay connected to the keyboard in order for it to work. Now we also have some of our media controls down here. So if you click play on the space bar or pause, it will play or stop our music. And you can also skip ahead or skip all the way ahead to a different track. And of course you can reverse that. Now you also have your volume controls here. So you have volume up or volume down and mute. Now, of course, this also works with video, so you can play, pause, skip forward, or skip track. You can also increase volume, drop volume, or mute it. Now in terms of size comparison between this and the Bluetooth Apple keyboard, you can see obviously there is quite a bit more room here. So buttons are a little more spread apart, the buttons are a little larger, and you have a few more of them. So you get a little more real estate here to work with. Now with this, they've sort of consolidated some buttons, in particular some punctuation, but otherwise it feels like a full-size keyboard. In fact, unless you compare them side by side, this feels just as comfortable as a full-size keyboard. I can definitely use this for a long period of time without worry, but of course some keys and functions have been changed, so you do have to get used to that. So in the end, I'm definitely a big fan of the keyboard case. It checks all the boxes for me, provides plenty of protection for the iPad, has a built-in keyboard that is actually useful and comfortable to use over a long period of time, has a very slick on and off feature which definitely solves one of my biggest headaches with using a Bluetooth keyboard with the iPad, including the Apple keyboard itself. Now there are two major problems with me for this case. One of them is how clumsy it is to sort of fold it up. So you kind of have to fold it up, and you want to make sure you fold it in front of the battery, not behind the battery. So it kind of rubs against the front of the iPad, and you don't really want that to happen. The other problem here is that the case is very heavy. It adds about 1 pound and 1 ounce to the overall weight of the iPad, so that's quite heavy. So the iPad itself is 1 pound and 4 ounces. This adds another 1 pound and 1 ounce, so it gets quite a bit heavier. It would be nice if this part came off and you can just use this part, as you know, provides protection for the iPad, and you can reconnect it to the case as you need it. But in the end, you can still fold it back. It is pretty comfortable to hold, but again, it is pretty heavy. So for example, when you're holding it back here, you can hold onto the battery compartment, so add some grip to it. And your keys will not interfere or will not operate on the screen when you're in this position. So again, pretty clever design. So in the end, I still think this is the best solution out there. You're certainly paying for it at $129.99, but you get excellent protection for the iPad, you get an excellent keyboard case, and you get solar charging, so you don't have to worry about charging this via USB or changing the batteries. So this is definitely an excellent self-sustaining all-in-one solution for your iPad, and I definitely recommend it. So that's going to do it for me, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.